get annual reports for. I give to several historic homes that are in Northern Virginia, that are in my neighborhood. And I support them because I am a history buff, I love history, and I want to see these homes preserved. And so we will typically give $100, $250, whatever, to these homes every year. Well, every year we get an annual report. And the back of that report are pages and pages and pages of people starting at 50,000 and up, and then 25,000 and up, and 10 to 25,000, and 1,000 to 10,000, and 500 to 1,000, and 250 to 500, and 100 to 250, and less than 100. But there are pages and pages and pages of names. They're all donors. It's a great place to find out who donates. And every time I get that report, I will sit there and go through the report and just circle names of people that I know from our community, because I know that they're donors. And I want to make a note of how much they've given, because I know that if Mr. Smith has given $5,000 to Oakland's Plantation, that when it comes time, and I also know that he's a conservative, I know when I have a fundraiser at my home that that's somebody I can go to and I can ask him for $5,000 because he's already given $5,000. I know that. So your hospital, local historic points of interest, charities. I serve on the board of the former Redskins coach Joe Gibbs has a youth home in Northern Virginia called Youth for Tomorrow. I've served on the board there for 18 years. Every year we publish a nice big book that lists all of the donors and all their donor levels. Again, it's all people all over Northern Virginia, but I can look in that book and I can see who the donors are. My college, a very small private school in Southwest Virginia, and every year when their report comes out, I'll sit there and I'll study all the pages of donors in there to see, especially the pages where they're geographically located and they show the ones from Northern Virginia. I'll go through there and I'll circle the names of people that I know in Northern Virginia who are donors. Almost all colleges that I'm aware of will put out an annual report like that. Almost all charities will have an annual report. Less likely to issue a public report like that would be things like churches. But a lot of times in churches, you know who the donors are because you know it just becomes obvious. If you know what you're looking for, it becomes obvious who the donors are. Sometimes there'll be plaques on the end of pews in the sanctuary saying that the Smith family contributed this pew, or maybe it's the pipe organ, or maybe it's the piano, or maybe it's the library, or maybe it's some piece of equipment. But most churches, when they are given large gifts, they'll give some type of recognition for that. And that's another way of knowing who donors are. So your antenna should always be up and looking for places where you can identify donors. And then once you have identified a group of donors, then the birds of a feather flock together. That starts to work in, because donors typically socialize with other donors. And so if you know that Mr. Smith is a donor and you know that Mr. Jones is his good friend, chances are very good that Mr. Jones is also a donor. And so you just start kind of working through a network and building a network of people that you know are donors.
So, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Do you not find that all these people that you're talking about give money to causes that they are passionate about?
Yes.
So,
And they may not be passionate about your cause. They're giving, but they are giving to causes they're passionate about. That's correct.
okay, so the issue here is to find people who are passionate about the Tea Party, or at least have to hear a story about the Tea Party
Right.
before you can even make the ask.
Right.
Okay, as long as.
Right, but you still need to know, if you know somebody is a Tea Party person or is favorable toward the Tea Party, and you know that they are a donor, then you put two and two together and you know that they can also be a donor to the Tea Party, okay? So not everybody who gives money to your local hospital is gonna give money to the Tea Party, obviously. But one thing that you will find to be true, and this drives the liberals crazy, but it is the absolute, honest to goodness truth. And there's a book written by Arthur Brooks, who's the head of the American Enterprise Institute, and it's called Who Cares? Or Who Really Cares, I think is the name of it. Who Really Cares? And in that book, he explains that most people who are donors are conservative. The vast majority of major donors are conservative. Liberals are not big givers. Now you've got some who are, and you've got, the Barbara Streisands and the Ted Turners of the world, who give a lot of money to liberal causes, but by and large, liberals are not generous. They like taking our money and giving it to people. They don't like giving their own money. And so you will learn, I think through experience, that by and large, most donors tend to be conservative. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to be supportive of the Tea Party, because there's a lot of misconceptions out there about who the Tea Party is, and we all know about that. The liberal media, in an effort to destroy us, has called us racists and rednecks and illiterates and terrorists. They've called us everything. And so some of that image has stuck. Some people actually believe that stuff. And so part of our job is to share with people what we really believe in. And that's part of what we try to do at the national level, is to do advertising and other things to let people know that the Tea Party is not these crazy stereotypes that the liberal media has put out there. So we're trying to provide cover at the...
Sorry.
That's all right. We try to provide some cover at the national level to make it easier when you go out, so that people don't think that about us. But we're fighting it's a never-ending battle, because the liberal media is out there every day telling people that we're a bunch of racist, kook terrorists. And so that's something that we have to fight all the time. I have to face that when we go to talk with major donors to the National Tea Party. And we were out west recently on a fundraising trip, and we were meeting with some representatives of some billionaires. And we were trying to explain to their representatives that these stereotypes are all incorrect. And they were actually, they kind of laughed after we got to know them and we got to be friendly with them. About an hour into the meeting, they started opening up a little bit, started sharing with us, and they said, we're actually very surprised that you came in here today, dressed in a suit and wearing a tie and looking like this. We thought you were going to be coming here in a three-corner hat, carrying a "Don't Tread on Me" flag and, beating a drum or something. And so these are the kinds of impressions that people have. But when they meet you and they get to know you and they get to know about the activities that your groups are involved in, they realize that you're just like them and they're just like you. So this is one of the things that you have to be able to overcome when you're reaching out. Other places to look for donors. There are public information, public records that are available that you can access. Some of those include your Secretary of State's office. I don't know the regulations that are specific to the state of Ohio, but I can tell you that in Virginia, if anyone gives more than $100 to either a federal or a state candidate, that contribution has to be reported at the State Board of Elections, and it becomes public information. And that information is available. You can usually download it, or you can go in and look at it, or copy it, or whatever, but usually it's available. By law, it's made available because it is public information.
And is it by party or by, I mean, do you know if the liberal?
Usually it's by candidate. They list the contributions
Okay.
by
So you
candidate.
would know.
Yeah, so you would know by the candidate. Now, another place that you can look for information, and I want you to listen very carefully to me here because this is important. I don't want anybody getting in trouble. A place that you can look for information, but you may not copy it and you may not use it for fundraising purposes directly, is the Federal Election Commission. The Federal Election Commission collects the names and addresses of every person who contributes to every federal candidate, whether it's House of Representatives or U.S. Senate or President.